Hey, everybody out there. This is Mike Gormley, and the show, ironically, is called The Mike Gormley Show. And we have some great guests on today. We're going to cover, generally speaking, something called music supervision, but it's intricate. It's not that simple. However, we have with us two of the, I would say, two of the most powerful music supervisors going. Um, let's start with Maureen Crowe, who is uh, basically the founding president of the Guild of Music Supervisors, which I'm going to get into a little later on, but has worked on some incredible films and shows over the years, and including The Bodyguard with the great song "I Will Always Love You," um, and um, and also with us is Tony Scudellari. Did I pronounce that right? Because I've been
You
practicing
did.
all week.
Yeah, you did well.
It's not difficult, but somehow I got off track. Tony is Senior Vice President of Television Music for Sony, and you can imagine that that's um, pretty powerful job, I would say, and we'll get into how that works a little later on. But Tony's career has included doing music or overseeing the music for shows like Better Call Saul and the Blacklist, and even Celebrity Dating Game and The Crown, which impresses me. And so, Tony, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Um, what I want to find out, I have a little touch of music supervision in my background, so I have some idea, but it was quite a long time ago, and I think probably things have changed considerably from whatever it was, 25 years ago or something. Um, is the modern age, let's call it, seriously impacted what you do, Tony? If I can ask, just if it's like, because you've been doing it a while, you can compare from what it was to what it is now. How is the AI getting in the way? Maybe bring us up to date a little bit on how things work for you.
Well, AI is just getting underway, and I think the technology is certainly way ahead of sort of like the legal aspect of it. But I think, it's still in the very early stage. I don't think it affects sort of the work that Maureen and I do at this point. But it is certainly having an impact, and I think all of us have an eye on it. That was a conversation actually that Thomas Galovich and I had yesterday when we talked a bit about AI. I think it's certainly going to affect composition and songwriting, and I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered before we do anything in terms of, having it be part of any sort of program. We certainly want to be respectful of the musicians that are involved in the creation of music, and we don't want to do anything that sort of, impacts them in a negative way. We want to respect the art form. I mean, you can't substitute, the human experience of creating songs with AI at this stage in life. And I don't think, I think that probably will hold for quite a while, I hope, or certainly at least as long as I'm still in this business.
They seem
Um,
to be trying to.
they seem to be trying, but I think there's, a lot of questions that, I think are too fraught with danger to be, doing it at this point in time.
Uh-huh. Uh, Maureen, on your side now, Tony, it's almost exclusively television that you work in.
Yes, I
Uh,
anything that's television related, whether it be comedies, dramas, movies for TV, animation, reality, unscripted, anything along those lines,
uh-huh.
that is what I'm involved with.
Maureen, you're more,
I'm kind of all over. I'm doing a television show, Miss
yeah.
Pat. I'm on this fourth season. That's with Jordan Cooper, who's a theatrical, came out of theater. So it's very much a live show, a lot of fun. To like feature films, like I Want to Dance with Somebody, Little Stevie documentary. So I think years ago, probably what changed, it used to be like, well, they do television, film, theater. It's all very different. And now it's very much combined. And the production standards are so much higher in television in terms of getting audience and holding on to them. But I think music is really key to that. And you can really bring in an audience and help them engage in the story by having something music that that works in the storyline. And I think more and more creators are tapping into that. Would you agree, Tony?
Absolutely. And I think, one of the other things is, to your original question, Mike, the audience is also so much more savvy. The producers, the executive producers, the directors are so much more savvy in the terms of the way that they use music and the way that they think about using music from 25 years ago to today, and I think that also poses, one of the reasons why a music supervisor is so important, because, they understand sort of the complexities of trying to create music as a voice, as part of the overall feel for a project, that if you're going to use it in a really substantial way, which we certainly hope our creatives do, and make it part of the storytelling, that in order to do that, you need to understand all the complexities of music.
And just like any design, who's the characters? What's the time period? What are you trying to say? Is it a scary movie? Is it a funny TV show? Is it ironic? Is it, all these different things all come into the overall design. And that's what a supervisor is doing. They're overseeing, do these design elements all pay off, and how can we, bring it all to fore to really help impact the story?
But when you're organizing all that for a show or a film or several of them at the same time, where do you go for the music? Do you just go to big record companies and publishers, or I see a lot of indie artists getting some exposure. What's your channel, Maureen? Where do you find all this, or are you just inundated with stuff and try it? It must be just overwhelming.
Well, first you have so many sources to go to. So when I was brought in to basically redesign a film, that they didn't quite know whether they wanted to make it an action movie or whatever. That was like, they decided it was a romantic comedy. And so we used some big songs, songs that would get them into the characters. But then I found all these really clever things that really just made the story work, that was maybe about being crazy or about being something else, or something that maybe wasn't something that was, oh, this is going to be on the radio, but it necessarily worked in the film. And I do think a lot of showrunners and stuff appreciate that and really try to get a new list. And I know Tony's very involved in that in a lot of his shows. And, if it's important to have that.
Well, Tony, how many shows do you work on at one time?
It varies. Just in terms of the slate over the course of a year, just domestically, it's between like 60 to 70 shows. Then for the animated side, there maybe a dozen shows that will be involved with on that side. There's also, the international division, which we also help, on certain projects. So it varies. And, it doesn't mean, just because it's over the course of a year doesn't necessarily mean that we're working on, 60 to 70 shows at that exact moment. But, it's certainly, in terms of a slate over the course of a year, it's pretty substantial.
Is it fair to say, I'm trying to grasp what you do when you get a show, and where you go for that music. It's a wide range of things available to you. So how do you decide who to call, or do you send out I think I've seen this done where some supervisors will send out a list of what they're looking for these days. Maybe it narrows it down that way, but what would your first couple of steps be when assigned a particular show?
Well, the first, much like something that Maureen would do as an independent supervisor, what we would do is we'd have a conversation with the creators, find out what they want to have as the musical voice for the show, how they want to approach it. And then in terms of, music, we would then start to look for sources of music and just sort of like, create folders and just bank music based on characters and storylines, and sort of like what we would think would be part of the bar music. If it's a show set in Minneapolis in the 1980s, we'd want to have music that would be appropriate in terms of feel, but that would be everything from indies and library to well-known songs, depending on what the budget is. And then we work on that. And then when we do put out a creative direction on a show, usually if it's for something that we need, and we need fast, so it's going to be something where we will give a very specific direction of what we're looking for on a specific scene. And I will say things like what kind of tempo it is, male female vocal, what the instrumentation would be like, what the lyrics hopefully would convey, and then I would give the price range that we would have available. I mean, and I'm not going to be like a car dealer and sort of like haggle with the price. If I say this is what we have, it's what we have.
Right.
So if someone then comes back and says, oh well, I need to I can do it for twice that number, it's like, don't even bother.
Can't do it. Yeah.
Because
Sometimes you've got producers or directors saying they want a particular song, and it's just not in the budget. Do you say I'll try, or do you just say I'm sorry, that won't work? I mean, because they're the boss, sort of, right? You can't.
What I was going to say though is some of it depends on it. If it's a big song and there's some compelling reason,
that's right.
Like it's Peter Gabriel's song and it's about ending world hunger and it's somehow really connected to him as a person, I have no problem reaching out to anybody and just saying, this is what we have. It's an opportunity. You don't want to do it? Okay. And then you can kind of move on. But like in terms of new material, I was going to say, if there's songwriters out there, it's always good to go through an aggregate, because we need to know that you have all your business together. It's very hard to just take somebody, off the street and go like, oh yeah, you say you wrote this by yourself and that you own the master and everything is great. And then you find out, oh, you signed that record deal a year ago with that little indie guy. Yeah, no, you don't own it anymore.
Right.
That has happened to me. And so it's, you even if it's like a friend of the director or a friend of something. So I do tell people to go through, you have the biggest opportunity for us to go through publishers or production houses and things like that. They're all getting stronger and stronger and stronger, especially if you're dealing with something with a young topic, like a romantic young story. You have a lot more flexibility as long as the song works, I think, because I think, first of all, younger people really get their music from that. They're a lot more open to it. But if you're doing a show like The Bear, where it's the character is a certain type and they've decided he's doing this and this is his thing, they put a stamp on it and it's based on the characters of the film. And you're not going to, if you're doing a guy, I love AC/DC, you got to figure out how to get AC/DC in there or get a lot of AC/DC sounds in there. It can work any way you want, but that's why there's no set fast rule on it. It's all just kind of just like art direction, costume design. Each show brings itself its own story and its own little design elements.
But there is the I think there's still sound-alikes. I mean, you can't get AC/DC, but you can get a band to sound like AC/DC and do an AC/DC song. Is that still
a cover? Yeah, you could use covers if it's appropriate. Again, if it's something that, and there's shows now that do like 60s sounding stuff for a 60s thing, but to me, that always takes me out a little bit. If it's that featured, it's like, you're pretending this is a turtle song, but I know it's not, so.
Sometimes it can fool you. You think you're listening to the original and you find out a year later that it was somebody else singing it entirely. I mean,
or it was Taylor Swift's cover of her own music. Yeah, it could be anything.
That's great. Well, it's the process is interesting, and are there, we're going to have to go to a commercial just in a minute or two, or maybe even less. But do you have your favorites that you turn to, whether they're songwriter favorites or publisher or whoever? Do you have I'll call so-and-so almost automatically, or is it very widespread? Maybe Tony, you could touch on that.
I think when we turn to certain people, it's because we know they have a specialty in a certain genre or feel. I will, I don't play favorites per se. For me, it's all about getting the right music for the show. And, if I know someone has that music and they're good, I think the criteria really is, are they easy to deal with? Do they have their business side together or not before I will go to them?
Have they been sued? Have they actually
right.
placed material that has caused an injunction against the film? Yeah, that's a bad thing to do. We never forget.
Yeah. Or have they given you something they said, oh, everything's cleared and it's not?
Yeah.
Never forget.
Exactly.
Let's go into that after the commercial, because it's kind of anyone who's listening and wants to try this, there's a few rules you really need to know. So we'll touch base on that in a couple of minutes. This is Mike Gormley. It's the Mike Gormley Show, fortunately, because it's Mike Gormley talking to you. But let's see you on the other side of this little commercial.
Hey, before we go, Mike, we've got our guests today have such great music. This is Jeremiah, by the way. Mike let me in on a show. We came in when we started the show with Fame, the theme song there. We're going out right now. There's a great story behind this. I don't know if we do have a couple minutes if you wanted to tell the story, Tony, but Sinead O'Connor, this was the Skyboat song. And if I'm not mistaken, this is one of her last recordings.
It was the last work that she did before she passed. We, for Outlander, which is what we're talking about, for the 7th season, which is airing now, and part 2 is going to be coming up shortly. I was speaking with her manager, and he said that, she was, ready this is after her son passed away. And she was very emotionally fragile, but, she wanted to get back into work. And, he just let me know that quite again, this is where opportunity is luck meeting, hard work, right? I was speaking with the producers, and they said, look, we want to do a different version of the theme for season 7. And, one of our dream people to get would be Sinead O'Connor. And I said, well, you wouldn't believe this, but I just had a conversation with the manager for Sinead, and she would be ready to do this. So then, we started the conversations with with her team and with production. And then we had Bear McCreary, our composer, meet with Sinead. They went over creatively what ideas they thought would work. And then, eventually, after we got all the business sorted out, she went and recorded it. We did a preview of it online. There was a lot of really excited feedback about it. And Sinead we didn't know this at the time, but Sinead was a big fan of Outlander, which was pretty cool. And then what happened was she then posted, that she on her own, she posted that this was one of her projects, and she was really excited about it, and please listen to it and watch Outlander. And it just, it was literally one of the last things that she recorded and, posted. And if you, go to her feed, you'll see that was the last thing that she ever put up. So I'm really, I've always been a big fan of hers, and it was just really an honor to be able to work on her on that project.
Wow. What an incredible story. Well, here it is. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. This is the Mike Gormley Show. This is Sinead O'Connor, a Skyboat song. We'll be right back.
Okay, now